Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Green Party Tea Sunday. Woohoo! We do have a special guest coming on this evening, and we will gratefully introduce him later on. Um, but I did want to talk about what is probably on everyone's mind. Well, I want to let you know we will be talking about what's on everyone's mind in regards to Brian McGinnis. And salute, shout outs to Brian McGinnis. We do hope that you are healing well, and we will get to that a little bit later in the show. But what is going on with the Green Party around the U.S.? Well, ballot access time. Yep, that's what's going on. If you have not heard, the Green Party is in several states going out there petitioning for ballot access. So, if you live in a state with the Green Party that is petitioning for ballot access, please follow them on their socials. You can go to, let me just look at that website real quick. It is gp.org/state parties. And once you go there, you'll be able to find the verified socials of the Green parties for their respective states and look and see if they are petitioning. I do know the Illinois Green Party is actively petitioning right now for ballot access. And if you know anything about what we've been going through, you do know that the Democrats and Republicans are the ones that set the rules for ballot access is in each state. That's why we tell everyone you can't vote every 4 years, because that presidential election is not going to solve all your problems. Your state and local, emphasize local as well, your state and local elections are just as, if not more important. When you are thinking about potholes, that is not the U.S. government. When you are thinking about the judges that you might have to go in front of for any reason, that is not the federal, unless you have a federal crime, I'm just saying. But mainly those are going to be local, very local. So you would want to be there. Sheriffs, oh my goodness, how these things with the cops are going and everything. Those sheriffs, they do have a lot of power in the way of law enforcement. So you definitely want to be able to have your say in who should become sheriff. I I think about that a lot. When I was on the Dem side of things, my dad, Clinton Harris, we had a really good relationship with the sheriff in Cumberland County, Earl Moose Butler. We used to call him Moose. That was his nickname. He has passed on. However, he was the sheriff in Cumberland County for a really long time. I remember being very little, going to picnics and things like that for the campaign. And now that I'm a Green Party member, I'm like, it wouldn't hurt to have somebody in green running for sheriff. It does sound like it's counterproductive, but at the same time, I think a lot of things would change in that perspective. So having different candidates for the Green Party be able to get on the ballot means ballot access. And it's different for every state almost. Some states require that you get a certain amount of signatures and you can be on the ballot for 8 years. Some states require that you have to have a certain percentage of votes for any candidate office, and you can be on there for 10 years, like in the example of Texas in 2024, where Eduardo was able to get Texas on the ballot for 10 years. North Carolina, where I'm at, well, you have to either get 2% of the governor or presidential vote to stay on the ballot, or if you don't meet those two criteria, you can be put on the ballot as a new party if the presidential candidate is on at least 35 states. And Jill Stein did allow us that opportunity. So that is where we are at this point in time. Just checking to see if my guest still arriving. Yeah, yes, he's still arriving. I don't want to spoil it, but if you saw the post, then you would already know who's coming. So while we're at it, I just want to point right here to like, subscribe, and get that notification ding, 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 ding of when I'll be online so that you can get all the news for the Green Party as we do grow. So I'm going to be talking about a few other things before our guest hops on that I think are beneficial to what we're doing here as part of the Green Party. I know that there's a lot of things that we do talk about. So a lot of people don't know that the Green Party is not just here in the United States. We're international. In Germany news, Greens lead in critical state polls. Voters in wealthy Baden-Württemberg got behind the Greens Sunday, and that is a big deal. Greens across the world are getting more attention. They are getting in office more. They are doing more things. We are definitely unstoppable at getting that happening. But we're at the point where we have to also take a foothold here in America. Now, we do have a lot of people who are in office right now, and kudos to them for being able to do so. We love to hear it. We love to see it. So with that being said, we take a look at what's going on and happening internationally. But this week was a really big eye opener on how people see the Green Party and what we are. I've seen comments such as, hey, y'all aren't green, you're communist. I'm like, green is a color. That's the name of the party. But what are we? We are essentially eco-socialists. And I believe it was California, the California Green Party, the Green Party of California, who put out some information about the difference in what eco-socialists are and what socialism is. So I'm going to read that little bit of information so you can have that. And that was the Green Party of California. And it says, what is eco-socialism as described in the Green Party of California platform? The Green Party of California works to build an alternate system for socially and racially just, ecologically sustainable, democratic, and peaceful society that exists in harmony with nature. We call this alternative social, economic, and political system eco-socialism. Eco-socialism means an end to the capitalist class-based power and privilege marked by inequity, white supremacy, racism, imperialism, colonialism, ableism, hetero patriarchy, and all other forms of oppression. And an economic system based on social and worker ownership, waged and unwaged, and democratic control of production and exchange to best meet human and planetary needs. And a political system founded on democratic decision-making on the local, regional, national, and international levels, able to restore the balance between the worlds of nature and of humanity. So that is what eco-socialism is. And if you are not aware, the California Green Party is running candidates, but at the top of that list right about now is our good brother, Mr. Dr. Bilal Butch Ware. Now, you may not know, but Butch Ware was here in North Carolina when he was running for vice president with then candidate Jill Stein. And I got to meet him. I got to hear him speak. And I must say, he is an incredible, incredible human being. And I believe that he would be great as the governor of California. He is not one person to hold back. He is a person that will get the job done. And I do believe that they're shaking in their boots over there in California for all the people that are running for governor, because he is doing what needs to be done. He is outspoken and he is not holding back on what needs to happen. And I do know that his campaign unequivocally condemns the attacks on Iran led by the United States and Israel and called for an immediate ceasefire. So he is very outspoken, very vocal about all of those things. And we applaud everything that is going on with Butch Ware and his campaign. If you don't know anything about his campaign, I will say please, please, please go ahead, and I think it's butchwareforgov.org or .com. Let me take a look and see if I can rally that up for us. Butchware for Gov. Let me see what it is. And it's Butchware, the number 4, gov.com. That's right. I knew it was one of those two. It was either org or com. So yeah, and I will put that in the chat as well. So you'll be able to have it there, so that you can find out a little bit more about Butch Ware's campaign and how that is going about. So there's so many things that are going on that the Green Party of the U.S., GPUS, as I will say that, because that's what I'm so used to. I don't always say Green Party. I try to, because it's Green Party tea time. However, sometimes I say GPUS. That's just the acronym. But the Green Party has also says they categorically condemn the military attacks by Israel and the U.S. on Iran and the assassination of the Iranian religious leader Ayatollah Khamenei. I cannot pronounce that last name to save myself, but I do know that it was a very, some people were happy about it, some people were saddened about it, but it is for the people of Iran to make that call, to make that judgment. That was their leader, and whatever happened there is something that I have learned from the Obama elections, to listen to the actual people, because the people of Chicago were not all for him. The people of Illinois were not all for Obama. And for 8 years, I myself and so many people did not listen. Even when the things that Obama was doing was staring us right in the face, such as gifting Israel this Iron Dome. So what I have learned from that is to listen to the people. And when I say listen to the people, it is not just listening to the bots online. It is actually listening to people that you know or around you or things like that, people that are mutuals of yours. That's who you need to listen to. And if you know fundamentally that those people do not align in what you feel, then you know you probably shouldn't be listening to them. Because I did see a lot of Iranians thanking Trump. And I'm just like, well, anybody that's going to do that, I know that I shouldn't be listening to what they're saying. And the same would go for any Iranian thanking Joe Biden. I'm not going to hear that. So that's just how it is. That's just me. But as I did say before, we have a guest today, and he's going to be coming on. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up. Yeah. And he's here. Yeah, he's here.
Hello, y'all. Hi, glad to be here. Thank you so much, Kalia, for having me on.
It's great. It's great to have you on here. So I want you to introduce yourself, give us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to jump right into some other topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know, my name is Arshia Papari. Glad to be on with y'all and to have this time to speak here today. I'm running as the youngest candidate on the ballot for a state level position in the state of Texas, running for state representative here in Central Austin's House District 49. And I also serve as the youngest ever co-chair of the Green Party of the United States as well. So trying to lead with youth and make a change here in our world.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. Lead with youth. That is very admirable, because a lot of people don't understand how much the youth are going to be a part of what we're going to be doing in the future, especially in the Green Party. So are you a part of the Yes Caucus?
I am.
Tell us a little bit about the Yes Caucus as well.
For sure. So the Yes Caucus is the youth side of the Green Party, the Young Eco-Socialists caucus. And they've been doing a lot recently, really getting all the traction that we saw with the last election in 2024, with so many young people leaving the duopoly party, trying to bring those folks into the ranks in the Green Party, getting started with college campus chapters, and also just trying to incorporate young minds and young political voices in every level of politics possible. And so I'm happy to be part of that caucus as well, and try to do my part in setting up the Longhorn Greens, our campus affiliate here in UT Austin as well.
Awesome. So how's that helped you with your campaign as far as having as being a member of the Yes Caucus?
For sure. I mean, mostly it's just been a lot of support from folks around the country who have been really excited to see the work that we've been doing on the ground in Austin. There's not a ton of young folks running for office across the country, obviously. So every time that is happening, the Yes Caucus is always very engaged and interested in being able to support that. And I'm glad to have some of the folks from the caucus on my team as well on the campaign side, helping with social media things and a lot of different sides of that as well.
So you feel very supported by the Yes Caucus in your campaign bid?
Yeah, for sure. There's still a lot to work together on, but so far it's been really good.
Because I have a young lad in North Carolina. He's wanting to run for office, and he asked me about the Yes Caucus, and I told him that would be a really good place to go for support. So I'm really glad to hear that you're having a positive experience with the Yes Caucus and in your campaign. And speaking of your campaign, what was the reason that you wanted to run?
Yeah, for sure. There's a whole host of reasons for why I decided to run for this position here in House District 49. But I'd say it's twofold, really. One is just statistical reasoning, right? By 2028, it's expected that Gen Z will be a little more than 25% of the electorate population. And by 2030, millennials and Gen Z together will comprise around 60% of the electorate, and that'll go on from 2030 until 2060, where we have pretty much the majority power in our electorate population. However, when we look at it right now in Texas in 2026, we have almost no Gen Z or young representation in politics, whether that's at the local level or at the state level. And so I decided to throw my hat in the bid, especially with the fact that my district here in House District 49 in the center of Austin comprises of a lot of university students, a lot of young folks and young families as well. A little more than 25% of our constituency are just UT Austin students. And of course, there's other folks from St. Edward's University, Austin Community College, and other places as well that are thrown in the mix in this district. However, we don't really have a vocal representation in our politics, in our decision making in this district, nor anywhere else throughout the state. So looking at that, the youngest person that's progressive in the Texas House has been for a long time James Tallarico, who's running for Senate now. But then on the flip side, there is one person, which I don't necessarily remember the name, but they're a Republican representative from Amarillo. They're on the higher end of the Gen Z spectrum at 26, and they're using their position as a young person pretty much just to spew MAGA hatred and push folks to the side. And so I wanted to try and oppose that and actually be a young person in office for the right reasons to stand up for folks and make our voice heard, not only in my district, but across Texas. And I'd say the second reason, that was a long reasoning statistically, but the second reason is just our society and our politicians have really failed us for a long time. And I saw that most specifically back last spring when the current representative for this seat, Gina Hinojosa, decided to vote yes, along with the majority of the Democratic House caucus as well in the Texas House, almost unanimously passing a bill called House Bill 2972, which pretty much strips students and members of university communities of their protest rights, of their rights to free speech anywhere and everywhere. So we're now being pushed into a box, a specific place, time, and area that's getting squeezed tighter and tighter every legislative cycle. And it's also cutting out the ability of community members not from the university to be present at free speech actions or protests. That looked most recently like medics and medical workers that were present for a protest being told to leave the university campus and not being able to be a resource to students that were protesting, as well as not being able to have off-campus folks come in to support students in other ways as well, or to be speakers, anything like that. And I think that itself, the ability of our politicians to so easily go ahead and near unanimously vote to erode our freedom of speech rights and our rights to expression and protest in Texas is really, really worrying and detrimental to the student movement. And so that itself was one of the main reasons I decided to come into this race as the first candidate to throw my hat in the race. But since then, 8 other candidates that were in the Democratic Party threw in their hat after the current incumbent decided to run for governor. And now there's a runoff between the top 2 Democrats there, and we'll see what happens with that in May. But I'm still here trekking along, and we'll be ready for November.
Awesome, awesome. Scott Free is in the audience, and he says, "Hey."
Hello, Scott. Good to see you here as well.
Awesome. Yes, it is. They have the show Illinois Green Party Green live stream, and it actually, now that they're in the ballot access, like we were talking about before, they're in the ballot access portion of trying to get on the Illinois ballot. So they are now petitioning throughout the time being. So they have moved their show temporarily from Saturday to Sunday right after my show. So right after my show, if you want to flip on over and catch me there again on the Green live stream with Edie and Scott, please, please, please do so. We're trying to get green media out there as much as possible. And back to our guest. I do have a good question for you. And this is something that we've been seeing across the board, and it's going to lead us into a conversation that I promised everybody we'd be having. There are a lot of veterans running for Congress right now, including Greg Stoker out of Texas. How are you feeling about that?
Absolutely. That's a really good sentiment to bring up. And I think really it's awesome to see so many folks that are veterans deciding to take up the mantle of running for office, and especially with the Green Party. We have Greg Stoker here in Texas, which I've had the pleasure of meeting and being able to work alongside as well. And we have Anthony Aguilar and Brian McGinnis as well out of North Carolina. And I think really it comes from the point of folks, especially veterans, being so tired of the political machine continuing again and again in a revolving circle. And it brings me back to a meme sort of that's been going around where it's folks waking up in 2001 thinking that we're fighting for freedom and then realizing that we're not. Then again in 2003, and then now again and again and again up until now where we're in 2026, going to war for the same reasons and continuing to lose American lives and American futures for Zionism and also for just capitalistic greed that continues to go on and on. And I think seeing veterans being more and more the folks that are realizing this and are standing up to actually take up that mantle of their patriotic duty, which they signed up for, not to fight and die for Israel, but to fight and stand up for the American people. And I think having them be able to do that in the Green Party is a really, really great thing, especially now that we're going into another war.
All right, absolutely. So in North Carolina, we do have 3 congressional candidates. We have Anthony Aguilar, who is running for House in District 13, which is where I live. So he's got my vote. We do have Michael Dublin, who is running for House District 2 in the capital area, which is Wake County. And then we do have the item I know everyone is wanting to talk about, Brian McGinnis, who is running for U.S. Senate here as well. And to talk about Brian McGinnis, we have to talk about what happened this week in the Senate hearing. So I want to get your perspective before we just lay it all out there. But I'm pretty sure everybody has seen the video by now of the Senator Tim Sheehy from Montana doing his worst to a veteran, a fellow veteran at that, with the Capitol Police that involved quite severe injuries to Brian. So let's hear what your thoughts are on that at this time.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the most terrible things that can happen, right? Because these folks that join the military think that in the large part that they're there and have and that the politicians have their backs, that they're working together to support the people. And unfortunately, after coming back from duty, we see things like this happen. And actually, it brings me to a video I saw before any of that actually happened, which was Brian speaking to his senator, and the senator just trying to push him away and to diminish his voice, saying, "Oh, a Marine wants to speak. Everyone listen up. A Marine wants to speak." And I think that erosion of dignity and respect for those that give their most to this country and give their most to those decision makers in Capitol Hill is such a terrible, terrible thing to be seeing, especially with how far it went of a sitting senator deciding that aggressing against and hurting a Marine, a fellow American, was the best idea for him to do. And I think really as we sit here, it becomes clearer and clearer what the priorities of our politicians are. And we're seeing that regardless of who you are, what you do, who you've been, and how you've acted within our community, it does not matter if they are if it goes against the wishes of the Israel lobby and Capitol, really. And that's what Senator Sheehy was trying to protect their own interests as a bought out politician to serve AIPAC and the foreign Israeli lobby, as well as the interest of Capitol and the military industrial complex to continue selling bombs and planes and missiles, to continue the war and destruction without any opposition. And so we see this rotating grinder of young people getting into the military, going into the military grinder, getting killed and wounded, tormented throughout war, coming back, trying to stop that by any means necessary, and being sidelined, being abused as much as possible by the system so that that machine can continue to go on. And that is such a saddening and also terrible thing to see. But now that we've realized it, I think it's the duty of everyone and all of our veterans to stand together and oppose this full-heartedly as much as we can.
Absolutely. And I guess coincidentally, the senator that was yelling at him, like, this Marine is trying to talk, that is the North Carolina current sitting senator, Tom Tillis, whose seat Brian is actually running for. So to see that, it was this very disrespectful. And, as I said, all three of our Congress candidates, our congressional candidates, are veterans. Brian and Michael are veterans of the Marine Corps, and Anthony is a veteran of the Army. So to see that this hasn't happened to this extreme, we've seen the clips of a video where Anthony was taken away before, but not to this extreme where you had a sitting senator actually put himself into that position where the only reason I'm not playing the video is because I can't stomach it, to be honest with you. I've heard it too many times at this point in time. That snap, that crackle, that pop, it really just hurt my soul. And I actually know Brian. I have met him several times. We've talked about his campaign and things of that nature. Hi, Edie. But people just don't realize the Brian is one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. When I say he will welcome you with open arms, he will be there for you, and he is just a wonderful, gentle person. To see that happen to Brian broke my soul. It really did, because he did not deserve that. And I watched as things were unfolding, and I tried to look at the comments to see why everybody thought he deliberately stuck his hand in the door. Like, did y'all not see that the door closed on his hand? He didn't do that. So it was just so saddening. And it let a lot of people understand our military does not have that basic fundamental right that we all should have. And one of those is freedom of speech. And I hear people saying, oh, well, he shouldn't have been protesting there. He shouldn't have been protesting in uniform. What is it going to take for the government to listen to the people, especially the people that elect them, that we don't want war? Is this what it's going to take, or do we have to do something else? What do you think it's going to take for the government to listen to the people?
Honestly, I think it's sad. It's very sad to see and sad to say this as well, but I don't think the government wants to listen, right? Our top export is weaponry across the world. The main thing that runs our economy is the military, and this brings me back to a documentary that I watched alongside Greg Stoker a couple weeks ago here in Austin. It's going on a national tour. It's called Earth's Greatest Enemy, and it connects the two aspects of both environmental sustainability along with the military industrial complex and how they relate. And when we look at that, the US military is the world's greatest polluter. It is literally killing us every day in so many different ways, whether that's through all of the bases that we have that across the world, almost 1,000 bases that have munitions being used up and exploded all across those environments, or whether it's in instances like Camp Lejeune with water that is poisoning people, that has killed people continuously on and on. And those are only a few examples. But when we go back and view this as a whole, not only the military, but the military industrial complex is what runs the United States, what runs the empire. And so any opposition to that will always be struck down as fast and as hard as possible. And what I think is the main way that we can really push back against that is not to try and get politicians to listen, because we already know they don't want to listen. They only listen to money and to their donors and corrupt handlers. But how we can change the system fundamentally is by getting behind candidates like Brian, like Anthony, like Michael, and like Greg as well, and all of these other candidates on a third-party slate to push against that. And this election cycle might be one of the last. As we've heard, Trump himself doesn't want to see the midterms happen. He's thinking about establishing a national emergency and canceling elections. And so when that's happening, this is a possibility that we might be able to try and make some fundamental change in these next wave of elections with staunchly pro-people over profit, pro-planet over profit, peace over profit candidates. But if that does not happen, realistically, we need to be able to organize in our communities across the board, have grassroots efforts that tie each of us together, and are able to uplift our needs, uplift our demands within our own communities, and be able to interlink that across the nation in whatever way that it takes. And revolutions obviously don't take place instantaneously. It takes a lot of work to get to a point of revolutionary transformation within any society. But unfortunately, it seems like that is the path that we're headed down. And we'll just have to wait and see in what way that path unfolds. But I think the first step is really getting behind those folks that are standing up against this machine right now as much as possible.
Yes, very much so. Thank you for that. And just so folks know, there was a period of time where Brian was MIA. We were unable to get in touch with him. His wife, lawyers, no one was able to get in touch with him. However, he is on his way home as of today. So, well, I'm so glad and so thankful to be able to give that update that he is on his way home to be with his family. And I know that they are asking for some time just to be able to reconnect because he does have children, he has a wife, and something happened to him where he was not able to be with them. So, Brian, if you are out there listening, and I know you're probably not because you're resting, we love you. We thank you for your service, not just in the military, but as a firefighter for your community and a Green Party candidate and as a decent, wonderful human being. So kudos. Thank you, Brian. And to Tim Sheehy, you deserve the donkey of the day that you got from the Breakfast Club, even though I don't like them all that much. You deserve the donkey of the day. You deserve to be out of the running or future anything that has to do with government because you acted very, very out of line, very, very out of pocket. You're a senator, not a Capitol policeman. You were wrong for what you did. And I really do hope whatever comes your way will get you out of your Senate seat. Somebody challenge that man as an unpatriotic person. So thank you again so very much for giving that information about our candidates and, just that military connection that people don't realize is there. When people come out of the military and they're giving their opinion, it's because they know what happens. And for people to still say, yes, let's go to war, they don't understand the human loss that happens with war. Edie says, love the graphics of you are here with flowers as a gun. I think that's
yeah. Yeah,
say?
for sure. Thank you, Edie. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, you have a really good campaign that you have been running, and you've been doing so much work on your campaign. You've been going on different podcasts and interviews. You've been on the Green live stream. You've been a little bit of everywhere. So, what are your campaign platform goals that you have for the good people of Texas in your District 49?
Thank you for that question. That's honestly what excites me the most is the platform and what we can do with that. And so I was speaking on the Tracy's show about this last week, but my platform is a little bit non-traditional. Usually folks come out with a lot of discussion about education and healthcare, which I absolutely support 100%: universal healthcare, universal education, and universal childcare. Really, the basis of my my principles is that all people, all humans, deserve to have their needs met and not to have needs commodified. So whether that looks like public ownership of utilities and utilities being given to everyone, whether that looks like making sure that housing is a human right and making sure that no one is forced to sleep along the side of the road for lack of enough wealth to be able to have that shelter over the heads, or whether that looks like making sure that food is also a human right that no one is left to starve or to rummage through trash cans for their next meal. There's so many different things that we see in our society that are failures fundamentally of our society and of our political system and our economic model of not allowing people to live with dignity. And what I would say really is the core principle of my campaign is making sure that every Texan can live a dignified life. And that starts, I believe, with housing justice. And so my first platform point is freezing the rent and making sure that we have affordability across the board. So that looks like not just freezing the rent, but using that as a baseline, as the bare minimum that we can do, making sure that we don't extract any more from the people that already have so little, and to stop the pain, stop the bleeding, keep it where it's at, and then from there, compiled alongside freezing the rent, is building social housing through the state, through the cities as well, and on top of that, developing and continuing subsidized programs for housing. And so I take an anecdote for me. I currently live in West Campus next to the University of Texas at Austin. And as a student, of course, I don't have a ton of money to spend on a lot of different things. But thankfully, I'm able to use a program called the Smart Housing Program, which can take off a few $100s on rent for those in need of support through the city. And so that's a city program that is very effective right now. It could definitely be doing more, though. It could definitely be trying to reduce rents further. And honestly, for every person that needs this program or that could benefit from this program, not enough units are available for this, and not enough quantity of subsidization is available for this. And so that's something that we can work on, of expanding those sorts of programs, not just in Austin, but across the state, so that we can have this be a statewide measure to subsidize programs and do it a bit different than what the federal government does, right? And right now, what we're seeing extensively is the federal government is also failing possibly harder than the states at this point, leaving people to find their own means of survival left and right, and cutting almost every major welfare support system, and whether that's reductions to HUD funding or reductions to EBT support and SNAP, and so many other programs that have been affected. At this point, we need to make sure that the states are stepping up to pick up the slack as we go through this, and then to also be able to reverse that, to grow and to succeed in progress. And so moving past housing, we look at things like groceries and food, which has been impacted so severely with the cutting of SNAP funding. And that's something where we can look at trying to have government supports in that. Going back to how we could do housing is social housing could translate to government development of grocery stores, along with subsidization programs similar to the housing components, is subsidizing either basic necessities like milk, bread, meat, things like that, or overall being able to subsidize whole market areas. And then moving past groceries, we look at childcare. And this is something that's really pertinent, especially in my district, because this is such a young district, and something that's always said about UT Austin and Austin in general is students come to UT, they love the environment in the city, and they decide that they want to stay here and live in Austin after graduating. And I want to make sure that that dream and that aspiration can be fulfilled for everyone that wants to live in Austin as a young person. So along with housing and grocery support, it also looks like childcare support, where we're seeing right now a family that needs to put their kids in childcare usually has to rely on one spouse's almost full salary to be able to pay for those services. And that is just egregious. That's such a massive financial drain on families where one, parents are not able to really engage with their children through those developmental years and are also having to spend a majority of their salary on those services. And so as we saw in New York, Zoran was able to accomplish this quite speedily in his efforts. And while we have a different political situation here, and most certainly the governor would be opposed to this, I think it's also something that we can do here in Texas, and something I'll be striving for to be able to provide universal childcare for every new young family as well. And then looking past this and moving into other things is ending corporate power, right? And what does that look like? Because corporate power is something that's very elusive, right? It affects everyone. It's become more and more and more of a problem, and it's something that anyone could have predicted from the very onset of capitalism. Capitalism looks nice and looks like a great system in the starting years of a capitalistic system. People start to develop and start to build wealth, but then slowly, or well, not necessarily too slowly, but quickly, actually, after that initial phase, over time, monopolies start to form, oligopolies and oligarchies start to form, and we slowly set into a continual rhythm of oligarchy controlling the wealth resources of the majority of people. And so ending corporate power looks like trying to strip away that ingrained power of capitalism as much as possible. And one of those things is here in Texas. Unfortunately, our government absolutely hates unions and tries to destroy them at every turn. And thankfully, we've been able to claw back some supports for unions over the last few years. And that is also something that I'll be heavily supporting, of making sure that unions can not only stay alive, but that we can also continue to develop unions, expand unionization across the workforce, and put power back into the workers' hands rather than into the boss's hands. And aside from unions, is expanding workers' rights in other ways. Here in Texas, our minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and that is insane. It hasn't moved in decades now, while inflation is skyrocketing. And we really need to make sure that we can change that. We need to make sure that people can afford to live and are not being paid egregiously low salaries that we're allowing to continue. And I mean, other things on workers' rights is benefits, is maternal and paternal leave, lots of different things that we just don't really even aspire to or think about here, not only in Texas, but across the nation, ideas that seem foreign to us. And aside from workers' rights, we see other impacts of corporations on not only our communities, but ourselves every day. And one of those things that I look to is, as a Green Party candidate, as someone who's worked in the climate scene in the past and who's been so shook and so focused on trying to save our planet at any cost and to make sure that we have a planet and a livable environment to pass on to future generations, is that corporations are the main cause of those environmental harms. We talked about the US military industrial complex and how that itself is the largest polluter and destroyer of the environment across the world in any sense. But one rung below that is corporations, which are ingrained in our everyday lives. And what we can look at here in Texas is in the work of SpaceX, which everyone hates Elon, but this is something else to hate him for. Is SpaceX launches a lot of its rockets from the Galveston area here in Texas, and a lot of the times while they're launching, debris from their launches fall into the waterways there, and also onto the lands surrounding those launches, continuing to heavily pollute those areas. And we've been pushing back against this, but it doesn't seem like there's been any regulation of that. It doesn't seem like anyone really cares in the governmental aspect of trying to restrain that, trying to stop that. Other things that we can look at in terms of environmental issues here in Texas are oil wells. Texas is known for our oil production. We're the eighth largest economy, in part because of how much oil we drill and how core that is to our state. However, we don't really clean up after ourselves. We don't really care about how we drill the oil as long as it's getting drilled. And so for decades now, we've had oil wells that have been leaking through the oil drills into the aquifers around them, into the groundwater around them, which has gone into the agricultural development of our state, where we're watering our farms that are feeding our people with water contaminated with oil and oil residues. And so that's one of the main things of being able to find those leaks and to stop them, to fix our oil system as a whole. And aside from just the impacts of oil wells right now, we should leave oil in the past. It's something that's been destroying our environment for so long. And it's something that we have the resources and the ability to just put in the past and move on to renewable resources. Texas actually leads the country in renewable energy production, especially with wind and solar energy. Most people don't know that. Most folks don't think that Texas has renewable energy, but we do. And we have a lot of really good sources of development in solar and wind, and could expand into things like geothermal and nuclear energy as well, but just decide not to because of our oil lobby that is so massive here in Texas as well, pushing back against that. So that is another thing of really essentially developing a Texas New Green Deal. It was a Green Party thing in the past. AOC took it, spun it into a Democratic idea, and we're going to take that back. It was a Green Party plan from the start. And it's something that we'll put into the Green Party of Texas here as well, and into my work as the next state representative for this area, focusing on having a strong green plan for the future. And I think the third part on ending corporate power is something I'm really, really big into, is taking big money out of politics, right? Like big money in politics, as we see, whether when it's with Senator Sheehy or with any other politician that is essentially taking bribes from corporations, from foreign powers to operate in their interests, always leads to the detriment of our societies and to harm to our communities and our individuals in our societies. And so we really need to regulate that. We need to take big money out of politics in any way possible, whether that's on the state level or the national level in coalition. There's a lot of different methods that have been proposed around this. I don't have one set method, but I am going to be focusing on attacking it in full force from every way to try and make sure that that is no longer something that restricts the voice of the people, and is instead prioritizing the voice of corporations over our people. And so that would be the overall ending of corporate power. Those are three things there, which I'm really excited to be focusing on. And then lastly is really just coming from my experience as a youth leader, as an organizer, as an activist for so long, and from being on the front lines of the 2024 protests for Palestine in the spring, both in April 24th at UT Austin, as well as April 29th at UT, where we were brutalized. We were met with a militarized police state for daring to call for the end of a genocide. And I think that really ingrained the desire to push back against the authoritarian and tyrannical rule of our governments, whether that's at the state level or the national level.
Yeah.
So one of my main platform points in my third point is standing up and protecting Texans' rights across the board. And that looks like prioritizing free speech, making sure that we don't have any of these honestly idiotic, insane bills like House Bill 2972, which the incumbent in this district decided to vote for, and making sure that we repeal that, make sure that campuses are a beacon of free speech in our societies, as they have been throughout time. And throughout time, they've been pushed back against, they've been brutalized. Students have always been taking the heat of governments in every major political movement. But we need to make sure that we can try and make sure that that stops as much as possible into the future. And just honestly, aside from that, standing up against fascism. We're seeing this all day, every day now, but there's not enough people in elected office that are willing to actually stand up against the fascist state that we live in now. And that looks like pushing back against ICE as much as possible in any way, repealing our bills around 287G contracts, which allow for, or not necessarily allow, but sort of force local police forces to basically become deputized ICE agents, and also to push back against things in Texas like Operation Lone Star, which is our money pit of throwing away billions of dollars in terms of putting boats with machine guns and razor wire and tons of Texas Guard troops onto our southern border to create a sense of security that really isn't there. There's a lot of militarization without really any benefit that we've been able to see, and is instead just harming our communities alongside the border, as well as draining our funds. And so that overall encompasses my platform, and it's still a work in progress. We still have a lot to add in, but what inspired me to make this platform was the idea of seeing what Democrats would not have cross their lips, and make sure we go for that. And so today, aside from some discussions on ICE and some discussions on free speech, I have not really heard any of my opponents in this race discuss any of these things at all, much less take a affirmative stance on them. And so that is the basis of a platform, focusing on everything the corrupt duopoly will not talk about and not advocate for, alongside the things that generally we all agree with, which is education, healthcare, economic development, all those general things that most stale milquetoast candidates usually talk about overall, right?
Right.
So I apologize. That was a very long-winded discussion of the platform, but I hope that gave some more context and ideas for y'all to discuss.
Awesome. And yes, it does. Very, very much so. So tell us where we can find you, how we can support you, and what is next for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So right now, y'all can find me on Instagram at Arshia for Texas, with the 4 spelled out FOR. And that's the main place where I do my engagement with the community, share info, share about events and any upcoming things. And also, just generally speaking, I'll be engaging with the community as much as possible, trying to both reach out to media as much as we can and also meet the people where they're at, whether that's on campus or otherwise at protests, anywhere else. So if you are in Texas, let me know. We'd love to meet up and engage one-on-one. But I think next things as well are really just making sure that we can become as visible and as known as possible in this campaign. There is a different candidate who I'm actually good friends with and I used to work under. She ran as a Democratic Socialist in this race on the Democratic ticket, and recollections from her race were that a lot of folks said that they wish they had known about her so that they could vote for her in this primary, but didn't hear about her in time. And I think that's also one of the main things that we're trying to push back against as much and to try to dissipate as much is the barrier between candidates and the voters knowing about candidates. So visibility is one of the biggest things for us right now, is making sure that that our district knows about us and knows that we are an option in this race. And then aside from that is funding and growing our volunteer teams. Of course, none of this work can really be done without a strong funding base. We have a lot of things that we need to invest in the future to be able to reach to voters, whether that's block walking literature or signs or social media ads, things like that, to help keep the machine going and keep this campaign on its feet. But also, aside from that, is volunteering, and that's something that I'm really passionate about. Is seeing how many folks from across the nation are interested in this. We have donors from across the nation. We also have volunteers from across the nation, whether they're in Wisconsin or in Oklahoma, Louisiana, other areas as well, where we've had volunteers join us. If you are interested in volunteering, please go to my website, which is archiefortexas.org, and there's a volunteering form there. Or also just follow us on Instagram, shoot us a DM at archiefortexas, and would love to speak with you, get you engaged as well. But really, it's going to be a team effort across not just this district, but hopefully across Texas and across the country as we all come together for this race. I really do believe that this can be the race that we win for the Green Party here in Texas. I think it's honestly the most winnable race in Texas and possibly in the South with our demographic makeup. And I think that we have just one contender to push against, which is the Democratic nominee. We don't have a Republican or Libertarian opponent. So it's just all hands on deck from now until November to try and get us up there, matching those polling statistics as our opponent, and get out the vote.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for giving us all this information about you. I hope everyone out there in Texas and anyone who knows somebody in Texas, I have family in Texas, tell them to look up Archia, vote for Archia, follow Archia, like and support, do everything you can, because Greens in office means a better future for us. So thank you so very much for being patient with me. I talked to him very early on when my show was trying to get over, and he has been so patient with me getting him on the show. So I really do thank you. And I hope to have you back again when it's closer to election time, see how things are going, and we can keep up with you and your tenure as a GPUS steering committee member, the youngest, and see where you go from here. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Kalia. Really appreciate you having me on and being able to speak to this community. I hope you all have a great rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and catch, because I'm about to jump over, so catch us on the Green live stream. I'm about to jump right on over there, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, y'all.